teacher was Ramesh Balsekar. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
He was a banker all his life. So he was a very practical man and very detailed. So he would go into each individual concept, whether it was Ramana's or his own teacher, whatever he read, he would really analyze it. So this idea of the end of suffering he agreed with, and then I agreed with it as well. But he would say, and I confirm this from my experience, that if we look at the different kinds of suffering, some kinds end and really end, and some kinds of suffering will not end. So if we start with physical pain as a kind of suffering, we will continue to have some physical pain in our life. Even Ramana had physical pain. That is part of the basic duality of life, pain, pleasure. So, so-called enlightenment will not end the basic duality of life, pain and pleasure. And that's important to understand and accept, because sometimes the seeker has heard all pain will end. And then they get disappointed when they discover they still have some physical pain. The second kind of suffering is sickness or disease. That will not end. Ramana is also a good example. You know Nisargadatta Maharaj?
Yes.
He also had cancer, a lot of pain. The Buddha, Jesus, many of the great sages had a lot of pain from the sickness or disease. So that cannot be the end of suffering. Then the third and fourth kind are connected. Emotional suffering and psychological suffering. Emotional and psychological suffering can end completely. So if we understand the basis of the emotional and psychological suffering, we discover what you're saying, which is that it's a kind of a mental activity. Thoughts, beliefs, memory, projections into the future, anxiety, fear, but specifically 5 things. Blame, blaming ourselves, blaming the other person. From blame, there's guilt and shame. From blame comes hatred, hating the other or hating ourselves. And the 5th one is pride. Pride is not connected to blame. But all of these 5, blame, guilt, shame, hatred, and pride, come from what Raman used to call a sense of personal doership. Have you heard that concept?
Yeah.
I call it personal authorship.
Personal?
Authorship. So one of the quotes that my teacher used to use of Ramana's, Ramana was asked one day, what is the difference between a normal person and a sage? And his answer, I think, was really interesting. He said the ego of the sage has no sense of personal doership.
Personal doership.
So the personal doership, when it drops away, takes away blame, guilt, shame, hatred, and pride. So that load of psychological, emotional suffering drops away completely and doesn't come back. So strong emotions, for example, sadness, a biological fear in the moment. I see a snake, I react biologically, and fear might arise. Anger, annoyance, frustration, irritation might arise. Strong emotions will not end, but they come and they go. So it's a kind of a suffering for some people, because some people are very sensitive emotionally, and they will continue to experience that. But the mental part, which is the anger coming biologically, the mind takes it and creates a story. You did something, I did something, blah, 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 God did something. That disappears. So there is an end to suffering, and I can testify that from my experience as well. but the physical pain will continue, body will react, continue, and sickness and disease will continue. So when the Buddha said, or Ramana said, many people said, there is an end to suffering in this life, conceptually and from my experience, and my Guru's experience, this is the kind of suffering that will end. Is that enough for you? If that suffering ends?
Yeah.
That's enough. Wonderful.
See,
I say that because
yeah.
some people hear this and they think, okay, that's enough. But they say, I would also like this. And then we can look at, is it realistic to expect that? Whatever it is. And that's useful to understand.